answers. Hey, what's going on YouTube? Son of Sanguinius here, and in this video we are going to be covering the Battleforged Armies article that was released on the Warhammer community site on the 5th of May 2017. So, this has been something that a lot of people have been talking about. They were kind of curious as to how Battleforged was going to work in the new edition, so here we have our answers, and without further ado, let's just dive right into it. So, the article starts, Battleforged armies will be familiar to Warhammer 40,000 players today. It basically means that all of your models in your army are part of a detachment or formation. This is largely true in the new edition, but with a few changes. The biggest one of which is, wait for it, puff of smoke, formations are gone. That's right, no more formations, but don't panic. So, this is something that some people have kind of speculated about, and honestly, with what they go into further down the further in the article, it's a change I can appreciate. It's a change that I can understand, and I feel like it's a change that I can accept. Obviously, the cool thing about formations was they were somewhat thematic, and it was nice that you could have a couple units in your army that had a little bit of lore, a little bit of fluff behind them with some cool special rules. But obviously, the big thing with 7th was the detachment of formation shenanigans that ultimately led to a whole bunch of special rules being applied to various different units, and that just sort of helped perpetuate the gap between Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 armies, especially when you look at things like Tier 3 armies that did not have that sort of, Decurion-style detachment. So the fact that formations are gone doesn't really affect me in any way, shape, or form. It does kind of suck that we can't necessarily have, things like the Death Company Strike Force or, any of the other cool little, formations that we had from something like Angel's Blade, but we'll have to wait and see what they do in the new edition. We'll have to see what they do for the Blood Angels Codex in 8th edition. But carrying on, it says, if your army is built using formations right now, you're going to be fine. In their place are a dozen new game-wide detachments that are available to all factions. These are flexible enough that all of your current forces can be fit into them to form a Battleforged army. The advantage of these is that all factions now have an even playing field of list-building mechanics, rather than some having loads and some having to stick with the trusty combined arms option for every game. So, this is something that we kind of saw coming, and it's very interesting to see Games Workshop do this. I feel like it's really nice now that all armies will essentially have the same sort of toolkit for how to build their army. And when we look at things like stratagems and things like that we can spend our command points on, there will also be some generic things, of course, but then there will be some faction-specific stratagems later on, and it's really nice to see that Games Workshop is, instead of having various detachments or formations be sort of like the specialized thing for each of the factions, they're giving everyone a level playing field at the base of it, and then having the command point system and perhaps some of the individual rules for the individual models that you pick for your army sort of be the thing that sort of flushes them out. So what that sort of means, at least to me, is that the power scaling of each of the factions will not be as I guess, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for here? There won't be as large of a gap between the power scaling if everyone starts on the same playing field, hopefully. But we'll have to wait and see. So, it says here, these detachments are made up of a combination of 9 unit types, which will look very familiar to anyone who has played Warhammer 40,000 in the past 2 decades. Some you'll recognize from Space Marine Company markings and the classic Combined Arms detachment of today, plus Lords of War fortifications and the new one, Flyers, now with their own slot. So, right now they show a picture of the battlefield roll, and there are 9 of them. We have HQs, Troops, Elites, Fast Attack, Heavy Support, Dedicated Transport, Flyer, Fortification, and Lord of War. I feel like it's really interesting that they gave Flyers their own unit type, and I feel like it's kind of a welcome change, because frankly, some of the flyers, they either had to go on the fast attack or the heavy support choice, which I feel like kind of made it a little bit more difficult to take them. And I feel like flyers, given that they don't really act like other fast attack or other heavy support choices, I feel like the fact that Games Workshop gave them their own unit type is acceptable, and I think it makes sense. So, moving on, it says these detachments come with a few benefits and restrictions. The most common restriction is that all units in a single detachment must share a faction keyword, Tyrannid, Blood Angels, or Imperium, for example. The most common bonus is that depending on how optimized your army is for the logistics of war, you'll get command points to spend. We'll cover exactly what these can do for you soon, but trust us when we say they are incredibly useful if used wisely, and you generally get more of them if your army is a well-rounded and balanced force. And then they give a few examples. So the first example that they give is the Patrol Detachment, which is 1 to 2 HQs, 1 to 3 troops, 0 to 2 elites, 0 to 2 fast attack, 0 to 2 heavy support, and 0 to 2 flyers. It says dedicated transports may include 1 for each other choice. And restrictions, all units must be from the same faction. Command benefits, none. So again, this is like sort of like your smallest, base here for, say, 1,000 points. You could even do 500 points with the Patrol Detachment if you wanted to, or like 750 points, something like that. And then moving on, we have the Battalion Detachment, which is 2 to 3 HQs, 3 to 6 troops, 0 to 6 elites, 0 to 3 fast attack, 0 to 3 heavy support, and 0 to 2 flyers. Dedicated transports may include 1 for each other choice. Restrictions, all units must be from the same faction. And command benefits, plus 3 command points. And lastly here we have the Brigade Detachment, which is 3 to 5 HQs, 6 to 12 troops, 3 to 8 elites, 3 to 5 fast attack, and 3 to 5 heavy support, and 0 to 2 flyers. It says dedicated transports may include 1 for each other choice. Restrictions, all units must be from the same factions, and command benefits, plus 9 command points. So, right here, we have a very good example of essentially 3 different point levels. So for the Patrol Detachment, obviously, we're talking anything from like 500 to 1,000 points. For the Battalion Detachment, we're looking at something like 1,500 to 2,000. And then for the Brigade Detachment with 3 HQs and 6 troops, 3 elites, 3 fast attack, and 3 heavy support being required, we're looking at probably 2,500, 3,000 points minimum. So it's very interesting to see these kinds of detachments here. Kind of gives us a peek into how GW has gone about making these things. And of course, I have a feeling that these 3 are sort of like the basic go-to detachments for the most well-balanced armies. I'm sure that there will be other detachments that will be specialized in, say, fast attack choices or heavy support choices or flyers or elites. Those we just haven't seen yet, as GW has said that there's like at least 12, possibly 14, I think is what they said on their live stream. So we'll have to wait and see. Overall, I'm very excited and I'm very curious to see the various other detachments. And of course, when 8th edition hits, you can bet your bottom dollar that your boy Son of Sanguinius is going to dive into each of the detachments and see how they sort of fit in with the Blood Angels army. So the article continues on. These are just a taste of the options available. Battleforged armies can be used with or without points, and we fully expect gamers playing matched or narrative play games to use these in most situations, as they tend to create effective armies on the tabletop that also fit the background and lore of the setting. Match play actually has a few extra rules too, designed for competitive events, which organizers can choose to use when setting the rules for the Battleforged armies. Limits on the number of separate detachments is one example. So, wow, a lot of information we got out of this. I am pretty excited. Again, we will cover the sort of stratagems that armies can use by spending command points and that kind of stuff. We'll cover that in a later video, but ultimately it's very nice to see that all armies will essentially have the same sort of toolkit, and it's also nice that they talk about how this isn't just for match play, this is also for narrative play as well. Which some of you, I'm sure, have had your eye on narrative play. I too have had my eye on narrative play, simply because I got a couple of buddies of mine, they're thinking about getting into 40k. I purchased the Dark Vengeance 7th edition starter set because I knew that, hey, you know, it's not going to be around for much longer, and hey, those models look pretty good. So I picked that up, and we're going to be having some 2v2 shenanigans, and narrative play, frankly, I think is awesome for new players to get involved while still having some somewhat balanced armies. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got for this video. Overall, I'm very excited to see what the other detachments are going to be. I think that the 3 that they listed here are, like I said, these are probably going to be the most well-rounded, I guess, balance as far as the unit composition to sort of have on the tabletop. Interestingly to note, in all 3 of these, the only thing that doesn't increase as far as the number that you can take and that isn't required is the flyers. They have always stuck to 0 to 2. So that's kind of nice, because I know a lot of people have had a problem with flyer spam, and I'm sure that there will be at least one detachment that allows you to bring more flyers, but I'm hoping that, you know, we can kind of keep flyers not so limited that they're not effective, but limited enough that they don't become overbearing on the game, because flyers do have some very good advantages against basically most other units in the game, in that they are in the air, and shooting at them, you know, we've had to make snapshots against them, so we haven't really seen what they're going to do in 8th edition, but I'm sure we will see what they're going to do with flyers in the near future here. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for this video. Overall, I'm very pleased to see what they're doing with this new Battleforged army system, and I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say, so feel free to leave a comment down below. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.